Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So I'm making this video in hopes that this will help each and every single person watching understand exactly why you get as many points in Alliance Quest as you do, and why your Alliance ranks and places wherever it does on the leaderboard. Now, I have been asked for this video quite a lot, but recently somebody just kind of like gave me an additional poke, so I decided to finally make it. And in order to explain all of that, there's going to be a couple of technical things to go through as well, but first and foremost, let's just jump to this blank wall behind me, and I'll be throwing loads of different texts at it, trying to explain how it all works. So first and foremost, let's just kind of like go through the key influencers in your Alliance Quest point system, basically. So number one, perhaps one of the most important things for Alliance, is the prestige. Now, prestige is something that every Alliance has. Some Alliances have lower and some Alliances have higher prestiges. How it's based on your hero rating. And to kind of like save myself a bit of trouble, I'm just going to bring out Kabam's explanation of prestige, which is actually quite awful, so I'm going to chip in on it. But individual prestige is the average of the PI, power index, of the top 5 champions, each player improving the hero rating of those 5 champions will increase your individual prestige. Now, again, they throw in the power index text, which is again not quite accurate, because typically power index in the game is represented including mastery additions and stuff like that. So in game, only way you can actually see true power index of the champion would be if you remove all the masteries. Obviously, there are many third-party tools which you can use to find out exactly what is the prestige of each and every single champion. Also, recently, Kabam actually started to display the prestige in-game, kind of like on your Summoner tab, so you can go and look it up there. But to understand how you can increase prestige and what determines the prestige, it's not quite as simple just relying on the game. Basically, it's 5 strongest heroes that you have. In short, having a champion ranked to higher rank increases the champion's power index, therefore your prestige. Having the champion awakened and higher signature level will also always increase champion's power index and your prestige by extension. So basically, you want to have a champion ranked up as high as possible with as high signature level, and that will basically provide you with the best prestige that you can get from that champion. Additionally, important to note that the prestige disparity between different champions is huge, and that is kind of like an arbitrary number because it used to be linked with the champion's attack and a couple other stats, but then about in 2016 or 2017, Kabam kind of severed that link, and ever since then, prestige has just been kind of like a random number that Kabam determines whenever they release a champion. So it isn't actually, the power index isn't anymore linked to pretty much anything in game or any stats in the game, and it's just something that Kabam makes up on the spot. For instance, Silver Surfer has absolutely abnormally huge prestige, and he's the highest on prestige list, and therefore having him ranked as high as possible and having him as high signature level as possible will be significantly more beneficial than, for instance, if you have ranked up, I don't know, Hulk. Hulk has notoriously bad prestige, or OG Spider-Man. As a rule of thumb, more or less, the newer the champion, the higher its prestige is going to be likely. Now, there are obviously exceptions, but typically like 2015, 2016, 2017 champions have relatively horrible prestige, with the exception of like, I don't know, Phoenix, and 2018, 19, and 20 champions all have relatively solid to great prestige. But obviously there are these prestige charts that you can look up to, and you can figure out exactly what champion has what prestige at what signature level. Now, Alliance prestige, which is the most important thing in this case, it's determined as to be an average of every single player's prestige in the Alliance. So the way it works is you add up, for instance, if your Alliance has 30 members, add the prestige of each of the 30 members together, so you get like a huge number, and then divide it by 30, thus calculating the average prestige in the Alliance. That's how it works, and that's quite simple. So whenever you invite somebody who has high prestige in your Alliance, you will increase your Alliance total prestige. Whenever you invite somebody who has low prestige in your Alliance, you will decrease your Alliance prestige. Now, if you are missing a member, for instance, then you don't divide the total prestige of 30, but for instance, if you are 28 members in Alliance, then you have that division by 28, so theoretically having less members in Alliance does not affect the Alliance prestige at all whatsoever. Obviously, it does affect your ability to play harder maps. Okay, that being said, and let's just jump back to the point, because I felt that prestige is really important and it has to be as clear as possible. If you have any more questions, leave a comment, I'll try to answer them. Now, the second most important factor, or well, second deciding factor of how many points you're going to be getting would be the map. It's arguably the most important factor, I'd say, because prestige, every alliance has some prestige, even if you have never heard of it, even if you have never focused on increasing your prestige. If you naturally keep ranking up champions to rank 5, for instance, and if you have 5 rank 5 champions, that you will generically, even without knowing what prestige is, have a relatively decent prestige. Anyways, that being said, map and maps in this case mean harder opponents and harder nodes, but each map comes with a multiplier. The higher the map, the higher the multiplier, and then basically because of that multiplier, you obtained amount of points get multiplied, let's say by 5 if you're playing map 5, and then you get kind of like a bigger number out of it. I forgot to mention that with prestige, the way it affects the alliance quest in itself is that the higher prestige, the higher health pools and attack the opponents that you're facing have. So basically, if you go in with 5,000 over average alliance prestige, your opponents will be significantly weaker, significantly less health and significantly less attack than if you were to enter the same map with 10,000 prestige. So the prestige affects alliance quest in a sense that it gives opponents more health and more attack. Obviously, alliance map determines exactly how your alliance quest is going to look like. It determines what kind of opponents you can see on these maps, and it determines how hard these nodes are going to be that you have to face. Now, quite recent addition has been alliance quest modifiers, and alliance quest modifiers is just quite that. It's an additional node that obviously increases the difficulty of the map, but it also serves as additional multiplier, and effectively the harder modifiers you choose and if you make sure all of them are different for each day of the contest, you get additional kind of like multiplier that once again multiplies whatever score you have accumulated at this point with the modifier multiplier, and then you kind of again get to increase your total score. And last thing to mention here would be the bonus prestige, because every day you successfully complete alliance quest, the game awards you with a bonus prestige. So that means that, for instance, in day 2 and day 3 you will get more points than you do in day 1 because your prestige has increased. It also means that the attack and health of your opponents has increased, obviously, but it will also give you ability to earn more points. Now that we have gone through these kind of like basic ideas and I have already started slowly weaving things together, let's start with these calculations themselves. So basically, let's imagine that for every fight in alliance quest you have base amount of points for fight. It can be 1, it can be whatever, it can be 1.5, it can be 5, I don't know exact number because Kabam has never released it, but there has to be a base that everything starts working with, and effectively if it's 1 then you can just ignore it. And then the first calculation would be your base amount of points gets multiplied by your alliance prestige. And that would mean, for instance, that the first fight you do, if your alliance prestige is, let's say, 5,000, would give you 5,000 points if you are fighting in alliance map that has multiplier 1 for alliance quest. Okay, so effectively here we can see that you get your base amount of points multiplied by prestige. The next thing would be alliance quest map multiplier. The harder the alliance quest map, the bigger the multiplier. So I think map 3, for instance, has multiplier 2, and map 5 has multiplier 5, and map 7 has multiplier 10 or 8, I don't know. I forgot all of these, but it doesn't realistically matter as much. The point is, the harder the map, the bigger the number you're going to get to multiply your score with, and then all of your points that you have accumulated get multiplied by the multiplier that your alliance quest map has. And last thing, obviously recently added alliance quest modifiers, which again, once you have multiplied your prestige points with your alliance quest map points, and then you have this like last bit in the calculation where you get to multiply it one more time with alliance quest modifier, which will be like 1.5, 2 or whatever, and then again you kind of get your points increased. And as you go through the alliance quest, then you have bonus prestige for completing map, and then you get increased bonus prestige obviously for every consecutive day. So every day, if you have successfully completed the previous day's maps, your prestige gets increased, and because of that, your points obviously get also higher and higher, but your opponents also get stronger and stronger and stronger at the same time. Now, once we have gotten there, let's just go to the verdict. This is going to be very quick, kind of like example, for instance. So if your alliance has 7,500 prestige, we can see that winning the fight would award you 7,500 points. Now, the next thing that gets taken in consideration would be the Alliance Quest map multiplier, which in this case I randomly picked the number 5. So that would lead you to having 30,500 points. If your alliance is using the modifiers, and let's say this modifier has 1.5 at it, so you multiply 37,500 by whatever the amount that modifier grants you. In this case, it would come up to kind of like 56,250. So this is like a very basic idea of how prestige, the map that you select, and the modifier usage affects your score. So it kind of like gets inflated from this very base number of 7,000 to like 56,250 like per fight. And obviously then each fight gets added up, and then mini boss fights award X amount more, and boss fights award X amount more points. And that is effectively how many points you scored per fight. Obviously that determines how many points you score per day, and that determines how many points you score in total. And this would kind of like go per battle group, obviously, because each battle group can have a different map that you're playing or different modifiers, so on and so forth. Right, so I hope it's not too complicated. I hope I'm kind of like putting my point across kind of like relatively well, and I hope this has helped you understand to a degree. Now, the last bit that I want to bring up is this calculation from before. So as I mentioned, so the X in here symbolizes the base amount of points. It gets multiplied by prestige. Then you get bonus prestige for completing the maps, and then each consecutive day your bonus kind of gets increased. Then it all gets multiplied by whatever multiplier the map that you are playing with has, and then you have these Alliance Quest modifiers, and that determines your points. Now, one important, extremely important thing to note, that Alliance Quest at its highest level will and has always obviously been extremely money dependent, because there's only one thing that you can affect at that point. Assuming you are using all of the hardest modifiers, and assuming you are using all of the hardest maps, so let's just let's just make this calculation more simplistic, right? So at the highest point of Alliance, for instance, if you are playing map 7 with your competitors, then it doesn't matter, because everybody you're competing with is playing the exact same map. Now, this is how the calculation effectively looks like in middle tier brackets. And higher tier brackets for like quote-unquote whales, if you're all playing the same map, then you can just take out the map modifier out of there, because everybody you're competing with will get exactly the same amount of points, because you're all playing map 7. In the highest tiers, all of these modifiers do is make Alliance Quest harder, because everybody is going to be using the hardest modifiers in order to get the most amount of points, trying to rank up higher. So again, this is going to be equal for every single alliance that is pushing hard in Alliance Quest, because everybody always selects harder modifiers. So again, this thing doesn't affect it, and it was basically used to just increase the difficulty for kind of like quote-unquote endgame players, right? And obviously that X amount of points is same for everybody. So again, that is not a variable that you can affect. And the bonus amount of prestige obviously is exactly the same for any alliance that plays exactly the same maps. So again, unfortunately, for higher tier alliances, this is the sad reality, because you are maxed out on every single stat, which is exactly equal as your opposition. And effectively, prestige and only prestige determines your Alliance Quest ranking if you're, let's say, in top 50 or top 30, I believe, because everybody there plays map 7 only. And what is obviously the most annoying thing is prestige in current state of the game is money. Kabam has made it a point not to release any high-end rank up materials, not to release any signature stones, not to release anything that could possibly help you increase your prestige, because currently towards the highest levels of game, 5 stars are not important for prestige anymore at all whatsoever. It's only all about 6 stars pretty much, and all of that is getting sold by dozens of thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So when it comes to kind of like more competitive aspect of Marvel Contest of Champions, prestige, unfortunately, again, in this case we can add prestige equals money, because Kabam is not releasing any ways how you can actually earn prestige in the game. And prestige equals money, and obviously money equals points in Alliance Quest, and unfortunately that is a sad reality. I don't mean it in the way that I'm complaining about the system. I just want to make sure that nobody kind of like has any illusions. If after watching this video you think you're going to understand how to get most amount of points in Alliance Quest, and then all of a sudden you're going to rank in like top 10. No, prestige ultimately is the one deciding factor that is going to always work as a tiebreaker. Prestige is also highly determined by amount of money, and you cannot possibly kind of like play your way up to it. You have to buy your way up to it, and you will obviously beat your competition if you play harder maps and if you play harder modifiers. But if you're unable to bring your prestige to the level that currently, let's say, the alliance that you're trying to compete with has, then you don't have a chance to bypass them in Alliance Quest, and therefore Alliance Quest is and always will be at its top level, extremely pay to win and pay to play kind of mode. Just wanted to put that out there to make it completely clear as well. All of that being said, I hope this entire thing has helped you guys understand how scoring is determined in Alliance Quest, how exactly it works. Again, all the numbers are purely meant as an examples. I didn't use any kind of like factual modifiers and stuff like that, because truth of the matter is Kabam doesn't really how release this magic formula. This is just how it's come to understand. So there might be an error in this video at any kind of like given point, even though the vast kind of like base idea that it all depends on your prestige, it all depends on maps you play, and it all depends on modifiers you choose is accurate. Now exactly how this calculation looks like, or if there are any other numbers involved, obviously none of us know exactly. That being said, if you liked today's video, well then, I think after talking so much, I deserve a bit of Baby Yoda. I deserve a bit of Baby Yoda downtime, and you guys know what that means. It's time for you to hit that like button, it's time for you to hit that sub button, it's time for you to share this video with your alliance mates, friends, and everybody else, so hopefully they also can understand exactly how Alliance Quest scoring works, what is prestiges, what is map multipliers, and what is Alliance Quest modifiers have to do with your scoring. All that being said, thank you very much for watching, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya!